Nothing quite like getting out there on your boat and enjoying some crystal clear blue water, maybe getting in and giving it a little snorkel, but only hoping and praying your boat doesn't decide it'd like a little closer look at the reef you're snorkeling as well, kind of like this crew found out here, and like some of the things we'll see in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us down to Florida, where this was the scene just this past week, when a man and his dog were sailing off the coast of Sanibel Island as Hurricane Helene approached the Florida coast, when all of a sudden, due to the high winds and seas, the sailing vessel became disabled and began to take on water. The incident occurred approximately 25 miles off the coast of Florida near Sanibel Island. The Coast Guard received the distress signal, and U.S. Coast Guard Air Station Clearwater wound up dispatching a rescue helicopter to go out to attempt to save the dog and the man. Now, as can be seen from these images here, the Coast Guard was able to successfully rescue these two off the boat. The boat was left disabled and adrift. But my big question on this one, with a hurricane approaching, should they have even been out there? Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on that. And then our next story to make the boating news is going to be along a similar subject, as we're going to go ahead and spend a few minutes talking about Hurricane Helene that wound up coming across the Gulf and ripping across Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, basically affecting the whole East Coast, inundating all of those regions with a massive amount of water. Now, I've been through a lot of hurricanes, approximately 16 in my life, and those are always the ones that scare me the most, the ones that have heavy rain. Now, I've even been through a Category 4 storm, and even with those heavy winds, that storm that I stayed through did not have a lot of rain, and honestly, the damage wasn't a ton from that storm, even with those heavy winds. The ones that I've seen the most damage from are the ones where we get a mass amount of rain in a very short period of time, kind of like Helene just did to several regions, with some regions reporting up to 30 inches of rain in around 24 hours in areas of North Carolina and Tennessee, causing mass destruction like we see here at Lake Lure. And Florida received a pretty heavy amount of water damage as well, but it came more from storm surge due to the high winds of the storm and the speed of the storm pushing the ocean onto land. Now, these rising water situations actually happen extremely quickly, especially even in Florida. There were reports of people who said their house was dry and 3 hours later they were standing in a foot of water. Now, elevate that even a little more. Take yourself to a region that's not typically prepared for hurricanes, such as the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, kind of like we see right here. Just a nice rolling stream. I actually had friends in the mountains during the hurricane. That was pre-Helene, and this is once Helene started rolling through. That is the same stream, with just a few hours later had risen this much. Now, one of the biggest problems with the mountains is everything rolls downhill. So all of a sudden you can see the speed at which this water is moving is going to wreak absolute havoc. And the reason being, it's going to erode the sides of the riverbed and anything along that riverbed as the water moves that fast along it. And here you can see, as the storm continues, exactly what we're talking about. As the water from the river begins to overflow the side of some of the banks, and of course the erosion along the banks is causing water to go everywhere. Again, water will take the path of least resistance, as many of you will know. But here you're going to see in a few moments exactly what's wreaked the most havoc up here in the mountains. You can see as it's running along, the side of the riverbed's actually eroding right here. And a little bit further down, they're actually going to get to the road that they're staying on, and you're going to see that the water has eroded so much of the shoreline that it's actually pulled the dirt from underneath the road and began to erode the road itself. Now, this is just a small creek doing this. Imagine the major rivers that are in and around Asheville and other areas of the mountains rolling at this speed, and that's why we're seeing the damage that we're seeing up there. Now, I don't want to understate the damage in Florida either, as several areas in Florida received some of the highest storm surge ever recorded in those areas, and I've been sent images like this for days of random boats and random jet skis literally sitting in people's yards because the boats got up and wound up floating away. Now, I'm a member of several different forums on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and these are the posts that I've been seeing for days and days now, is if you're missing a boat, if this is it, shoot me a message and I'll tell you where you can come get it. But the damage is astronomical right now. This really is probably one of the worst storms I've ever seen as far as broad spread damage. It's going to be an interesting one to see how a lot of these places are able to battle back and try and recover from this one. It's going to be a long battle, and our heartfelt condolences go out to everybody who's been affected by the storm. Thanks for watching, crew. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like Chris Edge, Matthew Heller, Tariq Bakari, Brandon, and Adam Coolidge did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here.